Hi there, Agile friends. Get ready for the World Tour of Agile at the Agile Online Summit 2023. You can join us from October 24th to 26th for a global showcase of cutting-edge Agile practices and insights. Join us at agileonlinesummit.com. This year, we will be featuring some of the best work done around the world and world-class keynotes. You can check all of that at agileonlinesummit.com. But the best part is that your ticket is on us. That's right, it's free to attend and immerse yourself in the world of Agile excellence. Don't miss out on this opportunity to level up your skills and network with peers and industry experts. Mark your calendars and secure your spot at AOS 23 today by visiting agileonlinesummit.com. So get your free ticket or opt for the full digital pass that lets you keep all the conference videos forever and organize, why not, Agile learning sessions at work. You can get the full digital access at agileonlinesummit.com. I'll see you in the conference floor. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Friday and TGIF episode this week with Aki Salmi. Hey, Aki, welcome back.
Hello again.
So, Aki, on Fridays, we talk about product owner. We'll talk about what a great product owner looks like in a minute. But first, share with us, what's your favorite, quote unquote, product owner anti-pattern?
This is pretty interesting question and very difficult question for me because I haven't been working with product owners that much. So this is something that is very hard for me to answer to. And instead, I would want to take this question into a slight turn into what have been the parts that, or the situations where I think the teams and the value that the teams have provided has been the best. And also there's the product owner or the product manager aspect is crucial in there. So I think, like, based on my experience of three very specific situations have been that we have not done Scrum. We haven't had Scrum Masters. We didn't have product owners, all of these things. But it was more like pulling data, pulling things, working together with product managers, where the product managers were helping us to understand the why, and then together figuring out the what is actually the thing that we need to like having a very close collaboration with the team. And in all these three situations, the team had like also very like could make decisions on what sort of things to pull from the backlog of things that needs to be done.
So tell us a little bit more about that. Let's try to explain this to our listeners. So there's a team, right? Like this is an environment where there is a concrete team, correct? Right. And this team is working on, I imagine, a product or a service that relies on software. Right.
Yes.
And they have some sort of a backlog.
Uh-huh.
So a list of things at least.
Yes.
And what you're telling us is that the team can go to that list and pull something, which hopefully has been prioritized in some way, can pull something. And then at that time, when they pull something from that backlog, they work with the product manager to clarify the why. Like, why is this important? How does it affect the business? Tell us a little bit more about how that process goes, because you said we weren't using Scrum. So I imagine that maybe you were using Kanban or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I can, like, one example is one product where I was working, where we basically every Monday we figured out like what are the important things that we will work on this week. So on Monday there was this like planning on who's working on what. And when it comes to the question on why and the focus on these things, like best examples for this have been, for me, there's been in my previous places, I've been doing a lot of ensemble work, or as we now call it, software teaming.
That's also called mob programming in some circles, yes.
In some circles, yes. And doing that together, like having a team, and also the product manager there together, figuring out like the why and having a very close collaboration on these things. Seeing that how would this be seen in the in the service from like the outside in, like the outside in perspective. What is the change of the behavior? How does this look like? Doing that, having a team together with the product owner in there to figuring out like what is the acceptance criteria? How do we know that this is done? How do we know that this is ready and we don't do too much? How can we focus on the work? And like the ensemble work that I've been doing has been pure magic in these places, and the ensemble work doesn't, for me, has never meant that we like 8 hours a day do ensemble, but it's been more like we do ensembles, like we have slots of ensemble work, and then we do also separate work, split in individual works to have a balance a bit on these things. Has worked for me very well. And also in this is the product owner has been product manager. Especially I'm thinking my last product manager that I worked with was brilliant in figuring out, working with the designer and figuring out from what does this mean for the user, and then together with us we could then figure out how to make this actually happening for the service. And then in the end also product manager in these cases was there to support us in seeing that this is
so if there's a team out there that wants to give this a try, right? They want to have that close relationship with the product manager or product owner, and they want to have this ensemble of work that you were defining. I'll put the link to all of those in the show notes. But how would you get started? Because I mean, for many of us, it might seem a little, a step too far, right? To start doing what you called it ensemble work, but that's in Scrum, we would call this refinement. To start doing the refinement when we pick up the story from the backlog. So that might even sound quite scary, right? So how could we get started to kind of go in that direction?
So it could be, is it that it could be scary because we would want to have a bit of or a sense of predictability and a sense of control, even for things that are still in the backlog?
Well, that would be one, but I think for me, at least in my own experience, the biggest problem with doing that is that who knows what the PM will think at that time, right? Yes. And it may be that when we start talking to the PM, it actually has nothing to do with what was originally in the backlog, exactly. Or at least so nothing to do with what we thought was in the backlog, exactly. Which we were already preparing for, because exactly. That's what we do as developers, right? We work with the future in mind all the time.
What if, so basically it might be that the product owner knows now more than they knew a week ago.
It also might be that they just go where the wind blows and somebody tapped him or her on the shoulder and said, hey, we want this. And suddenly now we want something that is totally different from what we had already been planning to do, because we started on this, let's say, set of features 2 sprints ago, right? Like what I mean is, one of the key aspects of the product owner role is to keep the coherence of the vision over time. Mm-hmm. Right? That we are always going in the same direction from an abstract enough level, right? Business perspective, customer centric. But if we ask the product owner every Monday to explain what is the most important thing, what does it mean, how do we do the minimum to get there, and so on, if that product owner or product manager isn't themselves extremely good at keeping the coherence of the vision, you might end up with a product that looks like a Microsoft product, right? It does everything, but nobody understands anything. Yeah,
which is a systemic problem, and that would be a system like issue in itself. So what in the sort of the environment invites that kind of behavior, then that would be a thing that would then most likely, if I would be in such a team, would be something that I would raise up as a topic to discuss in some manner, and to sort of show what is the effects of this kind of behavior for the teams, again, like these 4 characteristics, 4 things, like the core task constantly changing. It's very confusing. Are we doing A or B? This coherence that you were saying, how does this affect on the emotional climate? Very confusing. Like, how can I trust that we're building the same product that we built last week? what we could talk, like start figuring out what are the structures that we want to there. And then there's the leadership part is like, does the team really, is the team okay with environment like this? What are the steps that we take as a team in a situation like this, saying that we want something like more coherent? If this is something that we need, if we really need that, we want to build the same. If we don't want to build Microsoft software, but if we want to build Microsoft, maybe that's perfect. I don't know.
That is a good point, right? So that's why I was asking, like, what in the story that you were referring to, you were already there, like you were already working that way. But I'm pretty sure you've worked in teams where you were not there yet. So what are some of the things we can do? Like, imagine we're talking to a Scrum team out there and Scrum Masters. What can we do to slowly start going in that direction? Like, what are some of the things that you think help us get there?
I think one core is like we've talked about trust earlier, like how important trust is there. So start building trust. So one of my best experience of like trust was once client said that like I suggested that what if I stop estimating and I just start like doing small experiments, and then we see if this makes sense to continue with this. Client that was paying for everything I did, and the client was, that sounds brilliant, but there was like this trust on the work that I was doing. So starts with like building trust, and I think like starting a bit with ensemble work. And I know ensemble work for programmers can be very, very scary. What if people understand how little I know about programming? What if people would see how much I actually Google how to do stuff?
Everybody does, by the way.
Everybody does, and it's like going into an ensemble is very scary. It was very scary for me. And it's like when I go to new teams or new people, and if I pair with them or if I do ensemble, that also is scary things. So like even the work for ensemble, I think that is a huge step. So I don't know what would be easier step in these things. Maybe ensemble design. Figuring out together with, like you said, the refinement with the product owner and just drawing boxes and arrows. Another thing, discussing how does the flow work? How does the customer see it? Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, that's an invitation for all of you out there. Take a small step towards ensemble work. We'll put the link on the show notes. Aki, we're getting close to the end, but do share with us, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
It's a very good question, because I'm not basically on Twitter anymore, but you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also in Mastodon, everywhere basically with under Rinkka Satiainen.
We'll put the link on the show notes for all of you to find at least the LinkedIn page, and why not ask a few ensemble work related questions from Aki? I'm sure he would be happy to share. Aki, thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you, Oscar, for asking all these wonderful questions and guiding us through this week.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast host, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. So join us at scrummasterpodcast.com and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more full week of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.